All right, let's dive right into this. So picture yourself behind the wheel. You're driving down this desolate, completely forgotten highway in the absolute dead of night. The rain is just lashing violently against your windshield, your headlights are flickering against an impossibly thick fog, and then, suddenly, your beams catch something standing on the side of the road. It's a sign, and it looks like it's bleeding. It explicitly tells you to turn back. Now, in that exact moment where your basic survival depends entirely on raw, primal instinct, would you actually listen? Or would that dark, undeniable human phenomenon, that morbid curiosity psychologists call the call of the void, pull you straight into the abyss? We all like to think we'd slam on the brakes for sure, but the truth? Human beings are practically hardwired to step toward the edge, just to see exactly how far the drop goes.
Today, in this explainer, we're dissecting an extreme horror narrative known as the Harvest of Souls. And look, we aren't just telling a scary story here. We are analyzing a meticulously crafted trap. We're going to break down the psychological architecture of exactly what happens when we willfully ignore the universe literally screaming at us to run. This narrative operates as an absolute masterclass in tension and psychological breakdown. It uses this deeply immersive, pitch-black Gothic world-building to map out a complete descent into madness. So settle in, turn the lights down, and let's explore exactly how an environment is weaponized to completely digest a human mind.
Right off the bat, we encounter the sheer, blatant hubris that sets this whole nightmare in motion. We're standing at the very threshold of doom. There's this grim, visceral paint smeared across the warning, "Welcome to Scary Town, don't visit this place." And right there in the road, under the glow of a blood-red street slick, is a spectral figure just waiting in the heavy mist. The crucial thing to understand here is how the narrative exploits human arrogance. Because this trap, it requires consent. The traveler sees this glaringly obvious red flag, a terrifying apparition and a settlement literally bathed in a sinister Gothic gloom, and they deliberately keep going. The whole architecture of this horror relies entirely on our deeply ingrained belief that the rules of danger simply do not apply to us. We always think we're the exception, don't we?
But past the town limits, the atmosphere shifts violently, and the underlying mechanics of the story really start to escalate. The road grows claustrophobically narrow. The skeletal trees lean in like grasping claws, completely blocking out the sky. Under the lonely, sterile glare of a single street lamp, another heavily rusted, stark message appears. Turn back now. The spectral warning isn't just a passive piece of scenery anymore. It's become intimate. It's a targeted threat. Analytically speaking, this is where we transition from a general environmental hazard to an active predatory antagonist. The town is actively confirming that, yep, a fatal mistake has been made. It creates this profound sense of impending doom because, at this point, you've already driven way too far to just throw it in reverse.
Then, suddenly, the open road vanishes entirely, and the narrative swallows you into a claustrophobic, blood-soaked tunnel. "Run, run, run" is scrawled frantically in crimson across the filthy concrete. This is a brilliant use of a classic horror trope, the false sanctuary. Think about it. Instinctively, you seek shelter from the elements and the creeping dark of the open road, so you dive into a tunnel thinking you're safe. But in reality, you just cornered yourself in a subterranean bottleneck. The train tracks lead to a pitch-black vanishing point, and waiting patiently in the dark is the entity, following, guiding. The psychological tension shifts from the anxiety of the unknown to the absolute suffocating terror of the inevitable. The warnings aren't "don't enter" anymore. They are a desperate command to flee for your life. The world building in The Harvest of Souls is just incredibly deliberate. It establishes without a doubt that the point of no return is long gone. When you contrast the decaying, rain-slicked Gothic streets of the inner town with the suffocating, crow-infested shacks on the outskirts, it reveals one horrifying truth. The architecture itself is the antagonist. Whether you're wandering through imposing jagged spires with grotesque effigies hanging in the storm, or wading through muddy slums circled by massive birds of prey, the environment functions as a hostile, living cage. It's like the town operates as a giant digestive organism. Every street, every single cobblestone is designed to disorient, trap, and break down your psychological defenses. There are zero safe zones.
And the deeper the descent goes, the more the rules of reality just start to warp and snap. The history of this place isn't written down in books, it's etched directly into these oppressive, brooding visuals. Take the ruined settlement, bathed in these muted, sickly autumn colors. You've got deeply shadowed figures performing incomprehensible rituals in rotting doorways. And scattered across the burial grounds are these glowing jack-o'-lanterns. But in this context, they aren't festive decorations. They're functioning as necrotic beacons, burning with damned souls, basically illuminating a waking nightmare. The visual storytelling methodically strips away any remaining logic or reason you might be clinging to, plunging you deeper into a complete psychological collapse, where up is down and light only reveals more darkness.
I saw you. This right here is the ultimate paradigm shift in any horror narrative. You are no longer just a trespasser passively passing through a haunted space. You have been perceived. You are the subject. The sheer psychological devastation of realizing that a malicious, unseen intelligence knows exactly where you are. It instantly transforms you from an observer into prey.
Just let that devastating realization sink in for a second. Imagine a horrific, bloody scrawl dominating the peeling wall of an abandoned asylum room. A rusted, stained bed sits beneath a grotesque, screaming face painted directly onto the plaster. You fled into the first enclosed building you could find, desperate to build a barricade only to realize you've locked yourself inside the slaughterhouse. It perfectly explores the brutal illusion of free will. Every frantic decision made in a panic, it wasn't an escape, it was a calculated redirection by the town itself. The silence in that isolated room is deafening, broken only when you finally understand you were carefully guided into that exact corner.
Every single cascading choice, starting all the way back from ignoring that very first bleeding sign on the highway, has led directly to this suffocating bottleneck. You back out of the asylum room, turn around, and find her waiting at a dead end in a rotting, windowless hallway. The sheer inevitability of this moment is incredible. It is the physical manifestation of a trap snapping shut. The peeling wallpaper, the darkness creeping in from the open doorways on either side, and that stark white spectral figure waiting completely motionless. The funneling process is done. That wide-open highway has been reduced to a narrow corridor with 0 exits, systematically stripping away every last shred of human agency.
Okay, so let's break down the actual framework we're looking at here. What we've just witnessed is a highly systematic, 3-phase mechanism designed to process human lives. Phase 1 is the lure. It actively exploits human hubris. It uses those bleeding highway signs, presenting a boundary that secretly just begs to be challenged by the arrogant. It filters out the cautious and invites the curious. Phase 2 is the trap. This is the implementation of false sanctuaries, the claustrophobic funneling through blood-soaked tunnels and ruined asylum hallways, breaking down psychological defenses until the victim is completely isolated, disoriented, and stripped of hope. And finally, Phase 3. The harvest. This is the horrifying realization of why the trap was built in the first place, and the moment the true architect of the town comes to collect.
And that brings us to the horrific, mind-bending reality of Phase 3. Looming over the pumpkin fields, literally dwarfing the town itself, is a towering entity made of earth, shadow, and ancient malice. Now, pumpkins are deeply symbolic, right? They represent the harvest, organic decay, the whole cycle of life feeding death. And seeing the children in the foreground walking obediently toward those fields holding a single lantern, it reveals the story's ultimate crushing lore. This isn't just some random monster attack, no way. It is a highly organized, ritualistic feeding. The town, those spectral warnings you ignored, the bloody tunnels, they are all just gears in an elaborate farming implement designed to feed this colossal, ancient god of decay. Against an entity of this scale, the arrogant choices of a single human traveler are utterly, terrifyingly insignificant.
And so, we find ourselves at the beating heart of Scary Town, face to face with a decaying, red-eyed host, gripping a microphone, standing as a testament to the architect of the nightmare. We've traced the entire architecture of the trap, right from the first drop of arrogance to the final crushing reality of the harvest. The psychological breakdown is complete. So I'm going to leave you with one final, lingering thought today. If you found yourself on that dark, rain-slicked highway tonight, and your headlights illuminated that bleeding sign telling you to turn back, what would you do?